I was in New York most of the week, and I just want to report to you from, it's like another planet. If you do not live in New York or LA or San Francisco, you are not going through what they are going through, the mask mandates, you have to, every time you go into a restaurant, you have to show your vaccination card, which is crazy because you don't have to show it if you go into a drugstore or if you go into a clothing store, that's fine. But if for some reason a restaurant, you have to show your vaccination card. Then in some of the restaurants, you have to show your ID so they know it's actually your vaccination card. I mean, they are living under a regime. Well, they have this mayor. It's amazing. Everybody hates this mayor. Everybody hates Mayor de Blasio. Everybody thinks he's a moron. No matter how far left they are, they think de Blasio is a complete jackass. But the Republicans don't put up anyone against him, so they can't beat him. Here is de Blasio explaining, this is what he calls leadership. This is what he thinks leadership is. He's being interviewed on CNN, and the guy says to him, this is not happening with all these masks and stuff. This isn't happening in the rest of the country. But de Blasio tells him what he thinks leadership is.
People want to lead their lives. I mean, the hard thing, I feel it here in New York City. Yeah. By the way, I'm from Philadelphia, so it's not like I live in a rural area. But I feel it in every block that I walk in New York City. But if I were in the middle part of the country with you, I don't think we'd see masks. I don't think we'd be showing our vax cards anywhere. So I come back to that point where unless everybody's on the same page in the country, we're kind of screwed.
And you know how you get on the same page? People have to lead. So look, I believe with enough leadership, enough mandates, we're going to get a hell of a lot more people vaccinated. The more people vaccinated, the more we actually make the transition to a time when COVID is in the background, not the foreground. And we know these mandates work, and we know people respond. Look, human beings are pretty predictable. If you say your paycheck depends on it, or your ability to enjoy life and go do the things you want to do, people will make the practical decision overwhelmingly, and they'll go get vaccinated. But we aren't pushing hard enough. We got to go farther.
That's actually the opposite of leadership. Leadership is when people trust you so much that when you say, maybe you ought to do this or maybe you ought to do that, they think, okay, we'll take that into consideration. That's just forcing people to do stuff. That's called tyranny. He doesn't even know what leadership looks like. What a clown. And the city, I got to say, I'm not a big New York fan to begin with, but the city just looks bad. Everybody is grim. There's not a lot of fun going on because of the masks and the oppression. And then you come to Nashville and you're in the free state of Tennessee. It's like nobody cares. And they don't know it's happening. And when I explain to them that it's happening, their eyes glaze over. When I say, the numbers in Nashville are just, no worse than yours. And New York's are no better than they were before. So none of it is working. They just don't care because it's just a way of falling in. The one thing I do want to report on, though, is that I was at, for instance, a party at the Mysterious Bookshop. The Mysterious Press published my book, When Christmas Comes. You can see in there, if you're watching, you can see the picture. The guy in the red shirt is the great Otto Penzler, who is enjoying life because he has to, because when he dies, he's going to hell for eternity. He's like one of my closest friends, one of the worst people on earth. As one woman said to me, he's a monster, but he's our monster. I love the guy. I really do. But anyway, so you're in a bunch of fiction writers, very, very left-wing people, a lot of them. Two of them in two separate locations made the same joke to me where they said, I'm beginning to sound like you. And I said, take 2 aspirin and you'll be liberal in the morning. But they both made that joke to me because they are beginning to sound like me. They're just starting to realize that this is absurd and Joe Biden is absurd and the wokeness is absurd and the constant terror about COVID is absurd. There's an article in the Tablet by a guy named Lyle, I think it is, Leibowitz, called The Turn. And he talks about, it's interesting because he's kind of a cliched character. He describes himself as a cliched kind of New York left-wing Jewish guy who suddenly starts to say, this leftism is not good. And he says that you don't get to be against the rich if the richest people in the country fund your party in order to preserve their government-sponsored monopolies. You've heard that here too. You are not a supporter of free speech if you oppose free speech for people who disagree with you. You are not for the people if you pit most of them against each other based on the color of their skin. And he goes on and on. He talks about the pain of losing your community group because when you express these opinions at a dinner party on the Upper West Side, people call you names. People say you are unacceptable, especially if you support Israel, which he does. Very interesting article. And I got a whiff of that in New York. Something is turning. Something is changing. Now, many of you know my title of Lord of the Multiverse. And I couldn't get a nice plaque that showed that I actually own a piece of the multiverse, which, of course, I do. But I could get a plaque that shows that I own a little piece of Scotland and I am Lord Andrew Klavan. And this is legit. This is legit. Established titles. This comes from Established Titles. It's your opportunity to earn the title of Lord or Lady and gain the respect you deserve. Now, that part hasn't worked for me, but it might work for you. All you need is 1 square foot plot of land in Scotland. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies in English. In your title pack, you'll receive at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate and an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate, here it is, will include a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. With this certificate, you could officially change your name to Lord and Lady and get it on your credit card or plane tickets or anything else like that. Established Titles is having a great limited time sale, so go to establishedtitles.com/Klavan to save 10% off today. And remember to use the discount code Klavan or just click the link below. That's establishedtitles.com/Klavan or just click the link below. Shouldn't it be Lord Klavan / Lord Klavan? Well, it's not. It's Klavan. It's KL. However, having said all that, this new Omicron variant comes out. And I want to make it clear, I take this disease seriously. I'm in the age group. Most of the people who die are in my age group, the older age group. If you're fat, it's very deadly. I have been vaccinated up the wazoo. I've got my booster shot. I've got all of that stuff. And I believe that the vaccinations are keeping people from dying. They don't seem to keep you from catching the disease as much as they hoped. This new Omicron variant comes out. It doesn't seem to be very serious. It seems like a bad cold. It seems in a way like a good thing. It's the virus saying, okay, it's better if I keep people alive so they can spread it to a lot of different people. And so it spreads more easily, but people don't seem to be dying at the same, anywhere near. I don't even think there was one guy who died with it. Maybe there have been a couple of deaths, but not very, very few. Absolute panic from the government. It's all being imposed by the de Blasio government and the government in Albany. So, I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, I think I mentioned last week at Thanksgiving, my daughter and husband and my 2 grandsons came, and I got to see my little grandson take his first steps. I got to be there while I was there, and it was like, I have a video. I can't play the video because my daughter doesn't like her kids on media, and she's the mama bear, so that doesn't happen. But the video's hilarious because it's mostly me going nuts as I'm watching this happen. Mostly the baby doesn't care. The baby's just walking around. But anyway, I'm thinking about this, and I went to the Daily Wire Christmas party, and I went to a couple of parties in New York with friends that were just wonderful. I got to spend time with my older grandson, who I just adore, and we were just taking long, long walks and all this stuff. And I was thinking, this is life. This is life. This is what life is, and it goes away. You don't get to see, your grandson doesn't take his first steps twice. Your grandson isn't 7 twice. Your friends, Otto, whom I love as an older guy, people go away, they die, nothing lasts. I thought, this is life. When I get to sit with my buddies and have a drink or smoke a cigar, that is what life is. So what am I preserving if I'm not doing that? What am I preserving? I put a tweet out saying that. I thought, would I have even lived if I didn't do these things, if I just sheltered in place? And some lefties were saying, oh, you're selfish because you might make other people sick. And I thought, no, I don't owe people my life. I don't owe them to stop my life. If they're worried, if they're fat, if they're old, if they're not vaccinated, let them stay home. Let them stay home. But don't tell me to stay home. Don't tell me you're going to save my life by taking my life away. That makes absolutely no sense. A society that refuses to live because it might die is sick with something, but it's not the virus. That ain't the virus. We have a sick society. A healthy society takes risks, but it understands consequences, and we're exactly the opposite. We hide away and wash our hands a million times and wear masks everywhere, and then we defund the police. So the crime goes up. We send our children, home from school so they have emotional difficulties and they have to wear a mask, and that gives them emotional difficulties. We put in social programs that encourage fatherlessness and wonder why communities fall apart. We don't take risks, but we don't believe in consequences. It's just amazing. A healthy society has standards, but it's flexible enough to tolerate eccentricity. But we do the exact opposite. We have no standards, and eccentricity is considered holy. It's like fine to say, look, most people should get married, have children, have families. That is a good way to live. It will make you happy. And all right, there's a gay guy over there and he's living in a different way. You know, we understand that. But here it's like you've got to bow down to the rainbow flag because somehow being offbeat, being strange, being different has to be elevated to the position of a goal. It's sick. There's something sick about that. It's reversing the actual way that healthy societies work. A healthy society has an establishment which maintains the traditions and the values of the society, and it has an avant-garde that puts forward, crazy ideas, and everybody thinks they're crazy, but sometimes one of their ideas turns out to be the future idea. That's why they call them the avant-garde. They're out in front. We have the opposite. We declare a new radical notion every day. Men can become women and the government should care for our children. Criminals should not, should run free, should be set free. And if you disagree, you're hateful. You've got to shout everybody down. This is all a sickness. There's something sick about our culture. And, usually when people say something is sick about the culture, they want to diagnose the source of the sickness as something they don't like. So if you're a religious person, you say it's atheism. If you're a liberal, you say it's conservatism. If you're a conservative, you say it's leftism, whatever. And yes, I personally do believe that we would all be better off if we worshiped the living God instead of our own egos and money and our own sexual desires. But the one thing that I'm absolutely sure of, is hurting us is that our systems of information and our systems of information interchange have utterly broken down, right? The internet and human sin have made it so we can't trust anybody. We have to end these lockdowns for that reason, because we have to start talking to one another because our elites are so corrupt, so failed, so outmoded, so 20th century, if not 19th century, that we need to talk to one another. It was important that at this party I could talk to leftists so they could see me, they could look me in the eye and see, like, no, I don't hate people. And suddenly some of the ideas that they have are the same as the ideas that I have. We have to be able to do this. We have to have, life is flesh. Life is flesh. Children need to smell their parents. They need to be close enough to their parents so that they smell them. Smell is the sense of memory. They have to be able to remember. All those divorcees say, we'll still be a family. No, you will not. You have got to be there. You've got to be there for your grandkids. They have to know what you smelled like so when you're gone, they can remember. We need to look each other in the eyes. And this is this is Republicans and Democrats, believers and atheists, conservatives and idiots. We all have to be able to look each other in the eyes and exchange ideas without some jackass on NBC or MSNBC or the government telling us what we think and why we should hate one another. It's got to stop, This is the generation in which the internet first appeared, and we haven't processed it yet, and there will be a generation that will process it better than we have. But in order, it's just like after the invention of the printing press, they had all the heretic burning and 30 Years' War and the Civil Wars and the revolutions. If we want to avoid that, we have to be able to talk to one another and trust one another, even when we disagree. It's got to start, and it's going to have to start on the right, because the left is pushing hatred much, much harder than we are, and we are ready to listen. We don't have to compromise. We don't have to change our ideas. We just have to look in the one another's eyes and understand that there's a human being on the other side. The culture is sick, and there's no cure for it but courage. It is time to stop this stuff. Time to take off the masks. It's time to get out of your house. If you feel pretty certain that you will survive this thing, it is time to have courage and let this go. Give us a like and subscribe if you like our content, and go and subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show if you want a lot more.